Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the Awesome Lindsey channel. I'm here chatting with Lindsey Cowley. She's a photographer and actually a digital artist, but her work is phenomenal. Welcome, Lindsey.
Thank you. You're so nice.
I've always wanted to do like get-togethers, but then I'm always like, is that gonna be boring if no one's shooting? I don't know if there's like a way to like maybe have like one model, or maybe shoot other people. That way you can kind of like, there's no model just like hanging around doing nothing. But
yeah,
while you're all talking, because the main point would be to talk gear and meet people and like, how do you do
totally.
this? And
I thought about that too. And I was like, oh, maybe if we did something like everyone get together and we all do like our own headshots, because as photographers, we never do our own headshots.
Yeah.
So we can update our websites or something. And that's just like an easy thing. Like, and if we don't do it and just hang out, like there's no harm, no foul, you know?
Yeah. Because, man, have you tried to do self-photography before?
Yeah, that's most of the work I do, actually.
Is self-photography?
Yeah, a lot of my own photos are of me.
Oh, yeah?
Which is so weird to say. I'm just like,
I didn't know
hard,
that way.
though.
Yeah, like that's what I say, like, I guess you have experience, because I was gonna say it's super difficult because you got to like take the photo, run back to the camera, come back, check and see if it's good, maybe reframe, maybe turn up lights. You're just running around like crazy.
Well, that's exactly what it is. By the time you sit down to take the one photo, you're like, I'm so sweaty and I'm just tired.
I do like a what is it, a social media kind of picture update, like maybe once every 5 years, because like the last one I did was 3 of me, and I had like one guy looking cool, one guy like holding a gun, and there's like explosions I put in the background and playing and stuff, and then like the other guy's like scared. But like that took me forever to do that. I'm just like, I'm just gonna leave this up for a long time. And then finally did another one that's like me holding a lantern in front of a dragon or something.
That's awesome. Yeah. I remember the explosion one. That one was like insane to look over. I was just like, that's so much work and so much compositing, and it just looks so good. You did an awesome job.
Thank you very much. Yeah, every so often it's fun to just like get in there and do it, but like, I don't know, like weekly or monthly, I don't know if I have the patience for that. Yeah,
it's a thing. And like setting up a backdrop and stuff, I'm just like, because I live in a small apartment, and so I'm like, if I have to take it down after, I can't just leave it there. I'm like, this is a pain in the butt.
How often do you do self-portraits?
I try to do one a month if I can, just because I'm not a professional photographer. So if I want any kind of content or anything, I usually have to do it with myself.
Okay.
Because most of the work I do with others tends to be like cosplay work, and it's not like always necessarily the work I want to do. So the stuff I do in my own house, that's like the work I want to aim for. So it's good practice, but it's always a pain in the butt.
Let me go to your Instagram. So this is your page. So you're really good at cosplay. Like that's not really the style you really want to do?
I just would really enjoy doing like more big elaborate shoots where I get to like plan things out. The thing with like cosplay photography is you have to do what the cosplayer wants, right? Like they built the outfit, they've done all that time. So that's your job, is to make them look as good as possible. Where like when I want to build something, it's like, cool, I want this crazy like maiden in a forest with smoke, and maybe there's like all these cool elements scattered. And that's just like a really big undertaking. And like financially is really hard to even pull off too. So like when I do self-portrait stuff, it's pretty cheaply done. Or I'm just like, yeah, I bought like $20 off of Amazon, and you don't get to see the full body because there's nothing below this point, you know?
Because you haven't like decided to like build that whole out or anything?
Yeah, because I'm just like, oh, the dress I want's $100 or $200. I'm like, I don't have that budget.
So you want to get into like higher budget or like higher big production type stuff?
Yeah, like I want to be more of like a creative director on my own shoots, where I get to kind of establish the story and visuals and stuff like that, versus photographing visuals for others when they put the work in. And I appreciate the work people put in on cosplay. Like I've done some really fun shoots, like the Dead by Daylight one recently. I was like, this was so fun. Everyone put so much effort into it, and I got to photograph it in a kind of like spooky
Is that on
cinematic
here?
way. And yeah, like all the ones with the saws and stuff for Halloween.
Okay.
Um, but it's pretty dang cool how much effort this creative group puts in. Like I'm in a creative group on Facebook, and all these people
Yeah.
do this with their own time and money. So it's always awesome to be able to make content based off of other people's hard work too.
So is most of the work you do freelance? Like do you like is that your income or is that more for fun?
So photography is 100% for fun. I've only ever been paid for one shoot.
Okay.
I'm actually a graphic designer and animator. That's my full day job from 9 to 5. So I just do
Okay.
this stuff in my downtime.
Because that's the other thing. I mean, we can bring this up later, but your drawings, this one's a drawing. Your drawings have
Yeah.
like a lot of dimensions similar to your photographs, I think. I don't know. Like you did some ghost cheese or something one time. Where is that one?
Oh yeah, that's on my other account. It's called The
Okay.
Jupiter Falling. I switched it over because everyone's like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I don't know. I do a lot of weird stuff."
But this stuff is so freaking good.
Thank you.
Yeah. But okay, so going back to the shoot, so you with a with like the creative group, do you feel like you can kind of direct some of those shoots, or do you always feel like you have to kind of do what the cosplayer wants?
There's definitely times where like I have pitched an idea and people sign up, and so I get to have a lot of control over that.
Mm-hmm.
But usually it has to be a cosplay related idea for people to sign up. If I pitch a few years ago, I pitched, I'm like, I wanted to do like princesses in the snow, basically. The
Mm-hmm.
downside of that is I had a lot of interest in it, which was awesome. But then all of a sudden, I was like, I have to provide a bunch of dresses and wigs and crowns and all that other stuff for these shoots because I wanted creative control where it looked the way I pictured in my head versus someone showing up and being like, I wore a skirt that I happen to have, which I can respect that. But I'm like, if I wanted it to look the way I wanted it to look, I had to be the one investing in that. So we've done that before, but a lot of it is like someone goes, we're going to do a League of Legends. Who wants to be a
Mm-hmm.
photographer? Who wants to sign up for characters? And that's kind of how that group rolls, which
Yeah.
is awesome because you don't have to invest in someone building a costume. They just make it for you. And then you get to do all the cool photography for it, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it's been an awesome trade as far as like, that's pretty much how I learned to do photography was through this group. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing photography?
Only about 3 years now.
Wow.
Hasn't been very long.
Dude. Man, that's because when you saw that post I made on Instagram about doing these interview chat thingies,
Yeah.
and you're like, I'd like to talk to them. I was like, holy crap, like that'd be so awesome to talk with you because I feel like your work is just uh it's just insanely good. I mean,
Oh, thank
like
you.
I mean, it could be like coming from a design background too, like you know how to like kind of compose stuff.
It definitely helps to have the background. Yeah.
Yeah, because for only 3 years, man, your stuff is so good.
Oh,
So
thank you.
what? Yeah, what camera do you shoot with?
So I have a Canon 5D Mark III, uh,
Nice,
arguably a pretty old camera now, but the thing's a workhorse. And like, I
dude.
just
That's the
don't see the
same
point of
camera I have.
replacing it. Yeah. I'm just like, I don't need to replace it. It keeps going. And
Yeah,
I'm still getting the quality I want out of it. So I'm just going to stick with it till it literally dies on me.
dude, I'm exactly the same way. So okay, 5D Mark III. What lenses do you use?
For the first 2 years, I only had the Nifty 50, and it was like a cheap one from Amazon.
The plasticky one.
Yeah. Then about a year and a half ago, I invested in a 85 because I was doing so much like portrait photography. It made sense for me. And
Hmm.
then last year, I bought a 35 because when I travel, I wanted something that could capture more landscapes. And so
Uh-huh.
I invested in one of those. I'm slowly trying to build my lens kit now because I'm like, I'm dedicated to Canon at this point. Like
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm gonna get the lenses for that work.
So you're 80. So what are your apertures on the two? You're 85 and you're 35.
They both go down to 1.4. I think one does 1.4 and the other 1.2.
Is the 85 the 1.4?
Yes.
And then your 35 does a 1.2.
Yeah, which I never drop it that low because when you're doing
Yeah.
landscapes, it's just you want everything to look pretty crisp.
Yeah, I have the 85 1.2 and like a few other ones, but I use the 85 1.2 a lot.
Yeah.
I ended up getting that one because one of my buddies had it and like I really liked his work. And
Mm-hmm.
then, but I feel like a 50 would be better. But I'm just like, I spent so much money on this thing, like
Yeah.
probably just keep it forever. But I never use it at 1.2. It's usually at like, I don't know, f7.1 because like that's my normal
Mm-hmm.
portrait just go to on lenses.
Settings. Yeah.
Did you sell your Nifty 50 then?
Oh no, I still have that guy and I use it all the time still.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping to update it so I can get a one that drops lower. That 50, I think, only goes down to f4. But I use that thing for everything. Like if I could recommend one lens to people, and I'm not the authority on that at all, is just get a 50. It does everything.
Yeah. I always tell people, so like you have the 50 1.4, which is what you've got, and then you
Mhm.
have a 50 1.8, and then a 50 1.2, which is like the really high end one. But usually I
Mhm.
tell people if they're starting out, get the 50 1.4
Mhm.
because I think new or you can kind of get them around like 300 actually used or something around like 250, 300 used.
Yeah.
But this for just that amount of money, you get much more out of the 1.8 or sorry, the 1.4 than you do the 1.8. But generally going from the 1.8 to 1.2 is like a couple $100, maybe $1,000 more. So I'm always like,
Yeah.
that's not a huge investment unless you know you're going to need that clarity in glass for like the 1.2 or whatever. So
Mhm.
like, I don't know, I would say the middle one's like the best one to start out with.
Yeah, and I feel
Um,
like lens are things you invest in as you get better too. Like I've known so many people and they're like, I bought the best lens, the best body. I don't understand why my work doesn't look like so and so's. I'm like, well, you don't know how to use your camera yet. That's the biggest
yeah,
hurdle. Gotta learn how to use it first.
I feel like I was. I feel like people should learn the exposure triangle, right? Your ISO, shutter
Yep.
speed, and aperture,
Hmm.
and then I mean, shoot on whatever you can. But when people are like, "What if they never don't have any gear?" I'm always like, buy an okay body, maybe even a used body, but do get a
Hmm.
good lens. You know, because if you're going to get
Yeah.
that 51.4 and
Hmm.
excuse me, spend a couple $100 on it, at least
Yeah.
if you get like a wider aperture lens or something like that, you're able to do more artistic-y stuff than if you just got like the brand new body with the kit lens, like your 18 to 55
Yeah.
or whatever.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, learn lighting, learn how to do the exposure triangle, all that stuff.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to buy used. Like I think a
Yeah.
lot of people think if they're gonna buy a body or lens, like I gotta buy it brand new. I bought my Mark III used from someone locally, and they had used it for
Hmm.
about 5 years before selling it. And the thing is as good as the day you would buy it from the store. And
Oh yeah.
lenses are meant to last. So I'm not afraid to buy a lens from a person. I test it out before I pay them for it.
Yeah.
But like that stuff is built to last, and I think a lot of people forget that a used item is just as good as the real thing, and you get to save a little more as you're starting out too, which is always nice.
Do you buy a ton of used gear?
I buy a lot of used gear because I'm just
Uh,
not at a professional level, and I don't get paid to do this. So as a hobby, I I'm stingy. I'm cheap. I just will say that now. So
That's
like the
awesome.
way I see gear is like if you can't afford it because your hobby's not paying for it, you need to pay for it smarter. I think
Uh-huh.
it's fine to invest in a hobby you love, but as a creative person, it's really hard to throw money at things that you may never get a return back on. And that's just from my experience. Like, remember going through college and being like,
Yeah.
I can't afford to eat. And someone would be like, I will pay you in exposure for a logo. I'm like, that doesn't do anything for me.
That won't even buy ramen.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, man, like 99% of what I own is used. I think
Yeah.
my lights are new because not a lot of people sell, like I use the Godox system and
Hmm.
like, I don't know, they're still pretty new. So not a lot of people really sell them. Like I feel like they're starting to get in that category of like tank style because
Hmm.
like the ones I have, I've dropped and I've like used all the time. I don't know, beaten up. I'm not beaten up, but like they've been lasting, and I haven't really seen them used on too many sites. So that's the only
Yeah.
thing that I've really bought new.
Hmm.
All my lenses. Oh, I did get my Mark III for a birthday gift for my grandpa, so that was new.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, other than that, like all the I had 3 camera bodies before that were all used. So I'm just
Yeah.
like I feel like if you buy a name brand or a
Hmm.
reputable brand, you can buy it
Hmm.
used in like
Feel pretty confident.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what lighting do you use? Do you use lighting?
So I've always been a natural light photographer. So everything I do usually is like either outside, standing in front of a window, all that stuff,
Okay.
because lights were something I couldn't really afford.
Hmm.
I did buy some for Black Friday
What'd you
this
get?
year. There's these little LED. I'm just going to turn my,
Yeah.
don't mind my disgusting house. But that guy right
Oh,
there,
cool.
a GVM.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're great. They cost, I think, 150 for both of them. And now I can have
Hmm.
fun colored light.
That's pretty much. I mean, whatever the thing is lighting around me is. I feel like I have 2 GVMs up above,
Yeah.
and then yeah, it's crazy to see how much. Like what is it? The LED RGB lights are making it into photography
Hmm.
because I mean, our cameras, the Mark III, are the ISO range is not really that great compared to
Hmm.
like even like a new prosumer camera, like a T8 or whatever, even the Rebels or the
Uh-huh.
what do they have now, the R5 and the Rs.
Hmm.
So you can bump your exposure and like use those as I don't know key lights and like
Hmm.
just light your scene. So it's crazy to see how much those have kind of bled into photography when before it was like they're just video lights.
Well, and it's nice that like LEDs have come such a long way too. Cause like
Yeah.
I remember even a few years ago with like these big halogens that are like hot as hell, and
Hmm.
LEDs still weren't catching up. It still looked not great. And now all of a sudden I'm like, LEDs have caught up and they look pretty good.
Well, so I mean, I don't know if you can see. So this light up here, that
Hmm.
softbox is kind of what I light myself for YouTube, and like
Nice.
that's a Godox SL60. But someone was saying it's the same output as your Airy 1K, which those are like the halogen lights, super heavy, expensive, hot. This one was like
Hmm.
$130. Yeah, like LEDs have come so far.
So far.
I want to just pick through your Instagram if you're all right
Uh,
with that. So these ones I'm getting. So these are all self portraits then.
yeah, those
These
four
top
are self
three.
portraits. Yep.
Okay, so this one, how did you how did you go about this one? What's your lighting and what's your setup and all that?
So in this room I'm in right now, this is my little office, and all
Hmm.
I did was put up a backdrop, and this is before my LED panels came in. So
Hmm.
the one light is coming from the window behind me, and then the pink, I had just this cheap little, I call it a light bar, but it's like
Hmm.
cheap thing off of Amazon. You can change the colors, and I just set it off to the side a little bit. And then it was just me putting like a little see-through black cloth basically over my face. It's like when I say some of it is low budget, it's low budget.
That's but I mean it looks really good. I mean it's so and then
Thank you.
you did you did your makeup, right? Or is that any
Hmm.
Photoshop? Okay.
Yeah, I do my own makeup. Yep.
So you just had like the crown and the veil. Do you just collect like costumes and like outfits and stuff?
Yep.
Nice.
Like over the last 3 years, I'm like, if I ever want to start doing the work I want, I need to
Uh-huh.
slowly add those pieces to my arsenal. So like if I see something online or in the store that's like pretty discounted, I just pick it up and eventually be like, I'll use it at some point. So I'm the epitome of like a hoarder for costumes.
Do you have like tubs and tubs of costumes and stuff?
Not quite tubs, but I do have one side of my closet that is just dedicated to dresses right now.
Nice.
Because I'm like, oh, I go to the DI half the time and like people get rid of like formal wear or prom dresses or sometimes even wedding
Uh-huh.
dresses. And I go, cool, I'll take that and I can repurpose it for something. I'll just dunk it in a vat of green dye and turn it green. Like,
Do you ever rent your stuff out to like any like recoup any of the money or anything like that?
I never have, but I've never even thought about that because I don't know how you would be like, do they want to borrow a dress?
Well, I admin a group that I mean, I see people all the time come on there. They'll either, like maybe post a picture, and be like, "Here's what I have," or maybe they'll post a series of like individuals and be like, maybe
Nice.
prices or something. But like groups are a good place to put your stuff out at. The sparkles and stuff are probably photoshopped, right?
Yeah, those are photoshopped in. I mean, I've done a few things here and there where I put things in the foreground to get bokeh, but half the time, bokeh, that old
It's
chestnut. I don't know which one it is.
wherever you are in the world. Yeah.
um, but half the time I'm like, yeah, I could just put this in Photoshop. It's easier than trying to practically set stuff up, especially when you're doing self
Mm.
photography. I'm like, I don't want to have to figure out how close it needs to be to my camera and what's going to hold it. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So the same thing. You have a window light. I'm guessing coming from
Hmm.
camera left, and
Yep.
then background, and then all the. Do you have something in front of the camera on camera right, like a tree or something, or did you put that in Photoshop?
I put a random branch in post because part of that like side felt kind of empty. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's like where the design part of me comes in, where I'm like, I need to balance the composition. And so I
Yeah.
tuck that in post.
Okay, so that's post, and then so are the
Mhm.
sparklies. Man, that's really cool.
I'm arguably really not good at Photoshop. So I'm trying to like try to do things in Photoshop a little more because there's some crazy things you can do with that program. And I'm just like, I'm one of those people. I'm like, I can either be really good at it or it's like the epitome of terrible photoshopping, you know?
I've been there. Um, just to play around. But I mean, yeah, because you can do some amazing stuff, but you can do some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, you use a lot of shallow depth of field, it seems. So on your
Yeah.
is this one your 50 nifty 50, or is this one your
This one I think I did 35. This was a
okay.
35 because I knew I was going to have to get two models in. So sometimes I go with the wider lens.
Uh-huh.
And I like shooting wide open because I just really like the fall off and I like that the model in front of her is blurred out. Like I just enjoy seeing levels in a photo like that.
Yeah.
So I probably overuse and abuse it, but I just like doing it.
No. Well, I mean, me and another photographer were talking about how some people will get like a 1.2 lens or maybe grab a 70 to 200 and open it all
Hmm.
the way up and shoot at 70. So that way, like the background is just like blurry no matter where they are.
Hmm.
And they'll just shoot. Maybe they'll do like a long shot. And we are just kind of talking about how like some people just do that. And we feel like it can be kind of a crutch because it's
Hmm.
not really like it's sort of easy to do. You get a lot of natural light in there, but it doesn't really tell
Yep.
a story of where you are in your location. But I think you've
Hmm.
done it really well here because like I mean you've put them in an area, you've got the trees, you can see enough. You're
Hmm.
actually using a wider enough lens, but it just kind of tells more of a story, even though you're like wide open. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of finding a balance of your location too. Like if you don't have a nice location, I feel like opening your lens up wider can kind of help a bad location look good sometimes. But there's definitely I have had that imposter syndrome a lot because I'm just like, is this good photography if I'm hiding most of the information? You know?
Uh-huh.
It's always a
You know
fine
what?
balance.
This is like kind of a weird soapbox thing.
Hmm.
You're seeing like the ugly location challenge where people go into like the Home Depot, but then they
Hmm.
they go and like they go into the lighting section, and so they have everything around them. It's already
Beautiful.
lighting them soft. Yeah. And then they go over by
Yeah.
the paint swatches and it's like, you've already got a nice color palette. And then they go
Hmm.
over to like, so, I mean, I guess it is the challenge of finding the pretty spots in the ugly locations.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to, I'm trying not to complain about it, but like, I'm always curious, like if what would happen if it's like, okay, we're going to pick your location. Like you're going to shoot by the clamps or you're going to shoot by like,
A harder, yeah, like a more difficult
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. Can you actually get that ugly location to look good? And I
Yeah.
guess that would be like maybe stopping down your or opening up your aperture could help, or
Hmm.
just composition. That'd be, I mean, maybe I'll have to like do a YouTube video on that. And like,
Yeah, like an actual ugly location challenge.
yeah, like put my money where my mouth is and see. I'm gonna put that on my list of stuff to do. So did you on these Snow White ones, did you set up, did you direct and like pick the location and pick all the stuff, or was this more of a group effort as well?
This was a group effort. So this one was actually my friend Nikki. Okay, so let me see if I can break this down. There's a girl I know from this creative group. Her name's Missy Moody, and she does all these dresses now. Like she's trying to
Mhm.
launch a dress line. And so Nikki, who's one of my best friends, she was like, "Oh, I want to art direct how this should look to try to help her increase sales and stuff." And then she
Mhm.
asked me if I would just do the photos for her, and I was like, "Oh, sure." So like, she staged all the props and stuff, and then I was in charge of just moving around, making sure getting the images, and that's why I had a lot of like wides and then made sure I try to get some like tights. So you see there's just like one of the girls' neckline and her hands and stuff. So I could try to showcase some of the elements for her. So yeah, this one was a big undertaking because there was a lot of people involved and then everyone had a very specific job to do.
How many people were, so how many models and how many people were like kind of set like behind the scenes people?
So there's three of us behind the scenes, and then we had the two models. And for me, that seems like a big group just because most of the time I work by myself.
Uh-huh.
And like it's a lot of voices you need to make sure you are hitting, right? Like you want to make sure the um, dress creator is getting the content she needs and wants. You want to make sure you're appeasing the creative director and capturing the vision they also had. So
Hmm.
it was kind of interesting finding that balance. But like, since that's kind of my day job, I've gotten better at being like, okay, there's a lot of voices in the room. How do we consolidate down into one voice?
Yeah, okay. With that being your day job, is it
Hmm.
also does it still make it fun to do that as a hobby?
It depends on the day. I definitely have days where like I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't get to do what I want to do. And
Hmm.
I think that's just like arguably creative burnout and just being a creative in general. Sometimes you're just like, I'm tired of people telling me what to do. I just want to do what I want to
Yeah.
do. And so like it's finding a balance because this is a hobby and I'm like, I hit a point last year, I'm like, I'm not having fun anymore. And
Uh-huh.
that's when I kind of stopped working for a while, like as far as like photos go. And then I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, I think I need to just do things I want to do where I have 100% control. I don't have to appease anyone. And it's like helped bring back that like burnout I was feeling on it. Cause I do that at work all the time too. Just
Yeah.
constantly being engaged creatively. I think people think is ridiculous, but it's exhausting because you're
Yeah.
constantly having to tap into something and force things sometimes when you're like, sometimes you can't force it. It's just not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Or you're not like super pleased with how they turned out. I've had that where like I've taken the photos and pulled them in through Lightroom and go, I don't like most of these, if any of them. And then having to work on them because you promise people photos and you're like, I still
uh-huh.
want to do this.
Do you yeah, how do you deal with that? Do you just keep pushing through? Do you like do lesser edits? Like do you promise people a certain amount of edits back or anything like that? How do you get through images you don't like?
I think the advantage of never being paid for this is I get to choose the photos. That's been my thing. I know a
Hmm.
lot of people in our creative group give like the models a choice to pick the photos they like the best. And I'm like, I want to choose. because
Hmm.
that was my part of the deal for me personally, was like, if this is the photo I like the most, I'm going to be more happy to work on it because it's the one I wanted to work on. So I'm selfish in that way and take that from the model.
No, that's pretty standard. That's what I do.
Yeah, so I'm just like, that makes it easier. And then sometimes I just get like neurotic enough where I'm like, I just want this off my plate. So I just force myself to sit down, move through them so I can then free up my mental space, because I don't like worrying about things either. Just like, I don't want models messaging me like a week later going, are those photos ever going to be done? And me being like, I don't know when I get to them.
Uh-huh.
So I try to do like a 1 to 2 day turnaround, and I only give people like maybe 5 photos at the most. I'm pretty
Okay.
stingy, I guess, in that way, um, because my thought process on it is, if I only captured 5 photos of you that I think makes you look the best you can be, I don't want to give you 20 photos and have you be like, those all look kind of bad, but those 5 I really liked. I'd rather just give you the 5 and have you be happy.
Yeah.
Um, which I don't know if that's the right approach for a lot of people. A lot of people are like, I just want all the photos. And I'm like, you're not getting all the photos.
Yeah. Well, I yeah, I think that's like a artistic way to go about it. Cause if you're running it like you're running your Instagram and you're running your hobby like an artist and like a passion. So I think I'm the same way. Like when I do a shoot, so when you, really quick, let me ask you, like when you do 5 photos, is that of the whole shoot? Like, did you do a couple outfits or is that per outfit or anything?
So I do 5 photos per model. So sometimes, like, if we have 5 to 10 models, each of those people would get on average 3 to sometimes 8 photos, depending if I was really passionate about the shoot.
Okay.
So there's quite a bit of post processing going on, but like, I feel like the more you do it, the faster you get at it. Like, I can move through Lightroom incredibly fast. The only
Hmm.
thing that slows me down is like skin retouching, which
Hmm.
for a long time I was not good at. Like, I'll admit that. I'll look back at those and be like, damn, girl, you should have stopped.
You got
um,
to start somewhere.
yep. And so, like, I've gotten faster at that too, but that is the one part that takes a little bit longer. And that's part of the reason why I don't like showing models unprocessed photos. And I know that's pretty controversial because a lot of people are like, Photoshop's ruining things. I'm like,
Yeah.
I understand that mentality, but as someone who has like really bad skin, I'm like, I hate getting photos back and all I see is my acne all over my face. I'm like, I'd rather take the time to remove your acne and have you just see you, not see your insecurity. So I know a lot of people are like, I don't want you to Photoshop me at all. I was like, I'll respect that and I'll do that if they ask for it. But I like being like doing a little cleanup because I just feel like it makes people feel better when they see the photo.
Hmm.
But I know that is a hot topic in the
That's,
photography field.
yeah. For me, like when I shoot, I generally will do like 3 outfits, and I usually promise a minimum of 2
Hmm.
edits per outfit. So generally like
Nice.
6 images for the whole shoot. A lot of times
Hmm.
I give that as a minimum because there's been, that's where I started, is like I've done shoots before. I'm like, I don't like any of these. Like for some
Hmm.
reason the location wasn't working out or whatever, and I just don't like them. So I will make sure that I at least give 2 back, because I've seen known photographers that are just like, yeah, I just don't give anything back. I'm like, that's a dick move. Like, at
Hmm.
least give something back, because you may not like them, but the model may just love them. So like, at least give something
Yeah.
back. But yeah, I only give out 2. And I'm the same way with like retouching, because I started kind of like rethinking how I was doing things. I'm like,
Hmm.
I've scaled back on my skin retouching
Hmm.
a little bit, but I'm also like, you know, I'm I want to create a piece of art, because like with a statue, like Michelangelo David might have had acne, but the sculptor didn't put that in there because they don't want you to
Yeah.
remember that. You know what I mean? So
That's exactly it. Like, I think that's that's knowing that you're making art versus taking family portraits. In my opinion, that's the difference. Like, when people work with you, you're like, oh, we're making an art piece together. It's not like you getting your high school graduation photos. That's just kind of different for me.
That's a perfect analogy. We're not shooting
Yeah.
family photos. We're not shooting corporate headshots where,
You need to look just like you. Yeah.
yeah, or actor headshots. I've
Hmm.
heard a lot of people like say don't edit any, unless it's like a blemish or a pimple or something that'll go away in a
Hmm.
week, to make sure you don't edit any, which that makes sense for
Yeah.
headshots. Like you want, if there's a mole or if there's something, you'll probably want to keep that in. So that way, if they hand it into a director, the director
They're
knows,
not
okay, we'll need a
surprised.
makeup artist to cover this or do whatever.
Yeah. And I think like your client base then comes to you for those things. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would work with you because I'd be like, yeah, you're going to make me look baller at the end. And that's what I want versus
Mm-hmm.
like having my sister take my photo and posting it to Instagram, which that is totally fine. I respect that. But to me, they're very different calibers of work where I'm like, this is the piece I
Yeah.
want to print versus one that I'll post to Instagram and it's fine, you know?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, dude, you have so much good stuff on here. I don't know. Like this shot here or this scene, how was this another creative group shoot? Is that your dog?
That's my dog.
Oh, cool.
I just decided she and I needed to do a little Halloween shoot, and I just like photographing her because she's weird.
So, is this in your apartment as well?
Yep, I just staged a bunch of stuff in the background. I do own those chairs. I have questionable taste.
Man, my grandparents own chairs like that, I think.
Yeah, I know. Everyone says that. I'm like, I really like them, but I understand I'm an 80-year-old woman.
Oh, that's awesome. Dude, you do have a lot of so all that stuff is just in your house.
Yeah, I mean, I shoved most of my house into this corner.
Okay.
And then I stage a lot of stuff. Like, I don't have things draping off the wall like that. I do own a lot of Halloween decorations because I am obsessed with Halloween. So I will admit
Nice.
that.
As a lot of people are, I believe.
Yeah.
Wow. So this one, how did you light this one? Is it couple lights? Because I see the blue light.
Yeah. So that little blue light is just that like light wand I have.
Okay.
And so I just popped it into the back corner. And then I have, um, it's a softbox, but it was like a $30 one off of Amazon I got for Christmas one year. And I
Mm-hmm.
just threw that off to the side just to fill in enough of my face.
This is off
Downside
to
is,
camera right, correct?
yep. And the only downside about my light setup is you can't really see Darla. Black coats just absorb the light. So she's in
Mm-hmm.
there, but you have to look really hard.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll have to like highlight that on on the video or something. It took me a second.
Yeah. I gave her two heads and everyone's like, where's Darla? I was like, you gotta look really hard.
Okay. How
But
did you get
yeah,
your dog? Did they stay really like in the same
she's
spot and then you just turn their
she's
head?
really
Were you able to?
yeah, she's really tolerant. And then
Okay.
like I motivate her with treats, obviously. Um so this photo is like about four photos pieced together. There's the me in the center, one in the mirror, one on the foreground, and then Darla, who I was going, okay, I want her to look this way. So I'd be like, watch the treat. And now look
Mm-hmm.
this way, watch the treat, and then compile them all together.
Because that's, man, just getting her head to look right
Hmm.
and not have their body move. That's actually really, man, you're good at Photoshop for like only 3 years in. And I just, like I say, I love all just the extra details, like
Hmm.
like the orbs and stuff. What other Photoshop elements did you put in? Did you put in the top camera right? Did you put that little light flare in there, or was that
Yeah, I just put a little light flare because sometimes
okay?
I just want it to look unrealistic. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I would argue my style borders on not looking realistic most of the time. So sometimes I just push it into that realm of like, I know this
Yeah.
is not how the light looks, and I know there isn't all this bokeh in here or any of that. I'm just adding it because I can.
But it's not done super cheesy. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's got a good, like, it feels like it's good in there, and it's got a good painting look and like portrait piece of art kind of look to it.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
cool. Yeah. And then these ones,
Yeah, these are just self-portraits again, just in my office here and just stacking stuff on stuff. Like I got all these branches at Smith's for $2 and
so then you got a silver piece of drape in the, or goldy piece of drape in the back,
hmm
and you own
Yep.
that leather armor type thing.
Yeah, that was a splurge I made last year because I've always wanted a set for photo reasons. And so
Uh-huh.
I invested in some of these leather pieces last year. And the only downside is I don't have like lower sets, so it's hard to do full body shots in it quite yet.
Okay.
But yeah, this was one of those big splurges I made where I'm like, oh man, Lindsay, that was stupid. I really like it.
It looks cool. So,
Thanks.
and then the lighting on this one, you have that same softbox that you were talking
This
about
was just
earlier.
me facing the window.
You can see the catch light in your eyes is like just a big, nice, soft window.
hmm
Or, and then the top right flare, is that camera or is that Photoshop?
That one was Photoshop because if you flip to any of the other ones, I didn't necessarily put it in. I just really liked having this halo happening in there. But the rest of these
Okay.
are more true to just the normal light in the room. Like that first
Okay.
one, just the face on, that's how the light worked in the room, just kind of
Gotcha.
from the side window.
Man, you look radically different in all these images. I didn't know they even were you. That's so funny.
So this one is by Cameron. He took my photo for that shoot. The other ones I took, but I can't take credit for this set. This was
Okay.
Cam.
Cam's freaking amazing, by the way.
Yeah,
Okay, so he took
but
these ones.
the rest are all mine. The one with me in them is from Cam. The rest of these are
Okay.
mine, though. Just want to make sure. I'm not taking credit for his work because his work is so good.
Yeah, this is amazing. So this one is your shot, right?
hmm
Did you learn any lighting or anything like that from him? Do you guys teach each other? Does one of you teach the other?
No, we all just kind of learned on our own. And then as we've gotten together with the creative group, a lot of us start just going, oh, the light looks really good there. And then start switching locations to like get the shots we're aiming for.
Oh, gotcha.
So we're not shy about it.
Well, I mean, if the light's good in a place, then like
Yeah.
you got to shoot there. Otherwise, you're shooting in the dark. Were these like a group shoot type thing, or is this one of your own? Like I'm doing this, everybody come and do my thing, or was this a group effort?
Yeah. So someone pitched an idea for just birthday fairies. So everyone chose a month basically. And
Okay.
then it was just opened up to anyone who wanted to photograph them, and everyone put together their own outfits based on some illustrations one of the creators found. And yeah, it's just kind of a group coming together, just doing something fun.
Who was in charge of set design?
So this location is Rush on Metro. So Cam uses that place all the time. He rents out the studio. And so he just let us use the studio, and they have all that stuff already in there, which is awesome. So all I did was move plants around, dragged a chair in there, threw the rug down, just stole things from around the studio.
So you kind of set most of the setting up then, it seems.
Yeah, I like to try to do that.
How much thought did you put into color and color theory and stuff?
Yeah, like this, usually I color grade everything kind of similar in a shoot so everyone has the same tone. But like, since everyone was wearing such drastically different outfits, I wanted to kind of
Mm-hmm.
color tone to match the vibe a little more. So that's why some of them have a little more green in them, some are more deeper brown colors.
So did you do that in post, or did you do that, pick those beforehand?
I did it in post, so the whole
Okay.
room, the colors never shifted in there. But there's some parts where I'm like, okay, I'm going to color grade it this way, so the couch starts looking a
Okay.
different shade a little bit and stuff like that. And I think it's just like, and I'll go in and paint in some stuff if someone's dressed with like I'm thinking of Des in particular in this shot. She had a headband of flowers, and they were like nuclear orange. And I'm like, I don't really love that, so colored them back down to more of a yellow to match the rest of her. Yeah, so the flowers on her head were like neon orange, and then I toned them back to match the rest of the scene. So like
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not shy about doing that. Um And since it is like a creative trade, most models have never thrown a fit if I've color graded things a little past what they look like in reality. At least they haven't said it to my face.
That's why I asked the question, because that's where I love your work, because you pay attention to those details and all that stuff. Because like I said, when you, especially when you like take a bird's eye view back to the square on your Instagram feed,
Mm-hmm.
um, it just has, it has a cohesiveness to it. Like you have a color palette. There's not, you know, any striking reds or again neon colors like you're saying. Like you've
Mm-hmm.
gone through and you've actually like changed those to like look right in the scene, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, like in Lightroom, I don't have like a generic preset that I start at. I kind of do each set where I fine tune everything I want for the first one, then I'll copy and paste over some of them. But like
Mm-hmm.
in these ones, like some of the outfits were purple. So I was like, oh, I want the shadows to have purple in them too, to kind of complement the person in the room. So like each set can be kind of different. And I think that comes back from like being a graphic designer as a day job where you're like, this piece stands out and not for a good reason. So let's tone it
Mm-hmm.
back. And then I think that's why I'm neurotic about it.
I don't know, man. Like your graphic design has like been super handy with your photography, it seems.
Yeah, it's been a huge player.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through. Yeah, I loved this set. It looks like you probably changed the color of the trees.
So not by, yeah, I mean, I color graded these, but I didn't like, this was taken in the fall.
Okay, so you didn't really desaturate too much in the trees. You kind of left them as is.
Yep.
And then the orbs.
Added those in post. Like this was done on in Procreate just for fun.
Oh, the orbs were?
Yeah, just put them in there and put a
Oh,
blur on them.
nice.
But this shoot was really fun because like this was 100% my concept, and like Noelle was on board with letting me like completely control like her outfit, her posing and stuff like
Nice.
that. And it's one of my favorite sets I've done so far because it came out the way I had it in my head, which rarely happens. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
ever nailed it, but everything in my head is very different than what ends up on the screen. So this was the first shoot in a long time where I was like, this looks the way I wanted it to look. So I was really happy with how it turned out.
Where do you get your ideas from? Like, where do they come from?
I just think of random things throughout the year. This one in particular came from uh, about 2 years ago. I experienced my neighbor committed suicide, and it kind of traumatized me because I was a first responder. And so, like after that, I started thinking like, how do I get rid of this tension in my body through artwork? Because I tend to do that, and I know that sounds really pretentious to say, but it helps to get things out for me, and sometimes I channel that into the work I'm doing. So like for this one, I wanted to like make sure she looked like she was kind of like tangled in things because that's how my mind felt at the time, was just kind of tangled
Oh,
up. And so like that's why I was like, oh, I want to capture this image of the thought process that's happening with me right now. And like once I captured it and was able to like solidify it, like it helped a lot of that anxiety go away because I was able to like channel it out into
man, that's
something.
interesting. Okay. Wow, that's cool.
Some of it can be from like experiences I've had. Other things are like if I saw an image online that I really liked and I wanted to do something similar, I definitely do
Uh-huh.
that. Like, it's not all like weird tragic art things, but I do try to think of
Yeah.
concepts that I feel like I can back because I understand what they are doing inside my mind before I go out to pursue building it, if that makes sense.
Do you do any previs? Like, do you draw out kind of the image on your iPad or anything like that before you go shoot and then try and get it as
Yeah.
close in camera?
Yeah. For that set in particular, I had drawn ideas. So for that one, and then like Nikki in the lake, I had drawn that concept out, which I had never done before. Half the time I just show up and just shoot and then just go, this looks right, this looks right. But I had clear ideas what I wanted for these ones, and I feel like they ended up being some of the best work I've done to that point because I went in having an idea and a plan, and that helps a lot versus winging it because I've always been I'm gonna wing it. And I think that's
Uh-huh.
why sometimes I'm disappointed in the work, because I'm like, you didn't know how to ask her to pose the way you wanted because you hadn't thought about it ahead of time. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's a big thing for a photographer. And I lacked that for a long time. And then I've slowly gotten better at being like, okay, like, I want you to look tragically sad. So curl into yourself and just
Uh-huh.
that way you can get the look you're aiming for versus just going, yeah, maybe move your hand here and it's pretty and,
Oh, gotcha. So
yeah.
I'm guessing you put together mood boards and all that stuff now?
Yeah, especially if it's like one I'm planning it out, I put together mood boards and I even send it to my model ahead of time. I go, I really want you to look at the expressions the models are making here. I want you to notice how they're holding their bodies or if their hands are in very soft, like gesture movements and stuff like that. I was like, I want you to pay attention because by the time we're on set together, I'm going to be like correcting you constantly. And it makes it easier for both of us if you already know what we're aiming for. And I know
Mhm.
that can be kind of controlling, but I think it's always helped because sometimes the models come in, they're like, okay, you want very delicate, not like overtly sexy or something. Like, exactly.
Do you when you do your mood boards, do you do
Mhm.
them in a certain way? Like, do you put together? Do you have a program you use specifically that you think is cool, or do you like send Pinterest links or something?
Half the time I just open up Illustrator and drop some images in, like from Pinterest,
Hmm.
because I like to uh, cluster things together. So sometimes I'll cluster like the tonality of a photo I like into a
Uh-huh.
corner and be like, this is the tone. And then another corner, like, this is the makeup concepts and stack them together. So when I send them over to people, they'll know what to expect. Like, this is how the photo color grading is going to turn out. This is how your makeup's going to look.
Hmm.
And then I'll always put poses in there, being like, this is the pose I'm looking for. And like for the Lily one in particular, I was like, you're going to be in cold, muddy water. And if you're not cool with that, tell me now and we'll find a different model.
I found most models are pretty down to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, if they know the concept, and if you're putting a
Mm-hmm.
mood board together like that, most models are like,
Yep.
oh yeah, I'm totally down for that.
Yeah. Most models are fine to be uncomfortable for about 20 minutes and then they're done.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not like a whole day.
Yep.
So, where did you shoot this one?
This is up at Lily Lake in the Uintas. So it's really far up there. And luckily, this is Nikki. She's my best friend. And we went up for an overnight camping trip. And she's like, okay, I guess it's time for me to get in the water, right? And I'm like, yes.
Did you at least go during the summer?
We went in the summer. And so it wasn't like super cold, but like I hadn't ever been in the lake. And that lake in particular, there's like a foot, if not 2 feet, of just mud you sink into,
Oh,
which we found out when she stepped in. So
dang.
she was a very good sport about it.
These shots are cool though. I mean, so guessing just natural light, right?
Yep, all natural light. And just me color grading it into kind of this weird blue realm.
Was it a sunny day or an overcast day? Because I'm
It
seeing
was
some hard
really
shadows.
sunny.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really harsh light. I would have liked to wait till more golden hour, but in the Uintas, you have, if you're gonna be in the water, it has to be midday because it gets cold really fast. So I was like, we're not gonna put you in the water when it's gonna be freezing or anything. So kind of worked with the light we had, and there was a lot of like, cool, the sun shifted. I'm gonna run halfway across the lake and get you from this side now. And then a cloud
Hmm.
would come over and be like, cool, I'll come back towards you.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it was a task.
Do you ever use diffusers or do you have one of those 5-in-1 foldable diffusers or anything like that when you
Yeah.
shoot?
Yeah, I had one there and one of my other friends. So right off camera where those reed looking things are, someone's
Hmm.
standing there holding a reflector.
But do you ever use the diffuser part? Like if you put, let's say, can you see my mouse move in here?
No, I can't. I thought I did.
So basically on camera left, if you
Hmm.
had the diffuser basically between the sun and her to soften out the light. Do you ever do anything like that?
I do that off and on, but half the time my panel's not large enough to catch the whole body sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it depends on the shoot for me. If I'm doing like close-ups of her, I was definitely doing that to try cut light.
Mm-hmm.
But for these full body ones, I'm like, it kind of is what it is. So I'm gonna have her turn. So most of her face is in shadow, and she's just getting a harsh line on the side. But yeah, this was one of those shoots where I'm like, light's not ideal, but I'm also putting you in a non-ideal situation.
So I want to ask you about these neon-y ones. Are
Hmm.
these, is this you too?
This one's me too. Yeah.
So this one's just in your house as well?
Yep, just in my house, normal backdrop. I had a ring light at the time.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I put a blue gel in the ring light, and then I had that soft box, and I put a purple gel in the soft box. So I used to use a lot of gels. So that's how I got the neon look going. But now that I have these panels that switch colors for me, I'm pretty jazzed.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. And then did you put like uh any like effect or like overlay to give it kind of looks like an aurora borealis kind of feel on the background, or did that just happen from the lights?
So that just happens to be my backdrop. It has like
Okay.
a soft texture on it. And so it always gives just enough information to look interesting but non-intrusive, hopefully. But I use that thing all the time.
Nice. Because I'm
Yeah.
finding out talking to you that your Photoshop is it's good. So it's kind of like sort of deceptive. So you're like, which element did you
Hmm.
actually put in there? Which one are you like? You're kind of sneaky good with like you're like I've only been shooting for like 3 years, but like you kind of know how to do all these
Hmm.
cool effects. So it's like interesting to just kind of ask you which thing you did, which thing is in there. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, these look super cool. And then
Thank
same
you.
thing. Um, these
So that one
ones.
was done for me by Wicked Sensations Photography, and he did
Oh,
all
okay.
that work. So
Okay.
it's
So,
100% him. But that is
gotcha.
me.
I freaking love that movie, Sucker Punch.
Me too. It was so good. I
So
was
good.
so excited to do that one. I was like, yes.
Yeah, those
Same
are so
shoot.
cool.
Yeah, this is one of those princess things where I was like, I'm gonna dress you. I'm taking you to the location. Um,
Hmm.
I just really liked how all these sets turned out because I was being a control freak. So
For lighting, did you go through and like do a lot of color grading? Because like I love how dark the shadows are, but there's nothing's like crushed. Like you still see detail in there.
mhm.
This is the type of image that I've always wanted to try and get, but haven't yet.
Yeah, this it was a slightly overcast day, and the forest behind her was really quite dark, and that's why I like having things kind of disappear. So you'll see some things will have hyper bright and hyper dark behind them.
Hmm.
It's just kind of how I think again calls back to the designer in me, where I'm like the lightest thing pulls focus. You want everything else to push back. And like even in some of these photos, I will paint in some darker tone to kind of push it back further if I don't like something. So there are some haloing things you'll see in some of my work where I'm like crushing things back purposely. Um, but yeah, there's a fine balance because you know darks can get really noisy if you do too much on them, and I have been guilty of that in the past.
So, are you doing a lot of dodging and burning and stuff on this one?
Shockingly, no. Like this just happened to be there was
Oh,
perfect clouds out that day that softened everything on her face, and then I just tucked her back just enough to start getting
uh-huh.
fall off on her hair into that back. It's just like I think half the time, like as a natural light person, you have to just move your model around till you find it. Does that make sense?
Okay. But like in post, where you seeing so off camera, you've it's darker. Did you like put a vignette, or is that where you're saying you painted darker in there? Like, did you have to darken it down a little bit more, or was it just like that on that day?
This one in particular was just like that on that day.
That's
Just
cool.
getting lucky, finding the right thing as far as like the amount of light exposure. And I know it's not a good thing or good practice, but I tend to photograph slightly darker.
Uh-huh.
That way, if I want to pump up some light, I'm not already dealing with blown out skin. So I
Uh-huh.
can offset some of that in post. And I know that's a no-no. It should look perfect in camera, but
There's no perfect in
yeah.
camera.
I was like, with natural light, you have to kind of just do what you're given. So half the time I'll shoot slightly darker so I can have flexibility later. So I think that's why some of the backgrounds always look a little darker. It's because the photo itself was darker and I'm pulling some highlights forward now.
Are you, you're color grading this, right? Are you like pulling out, are there colors in here that you didn't want? And then are you like blend or moving the skin tones to certain shades or anything?
These were like shockingly good out of camera. I remember editing these and being like, I don't have to do a lot of work.
Nice.
But tonality wise, like I shifted the grass colors to mute back because they were more vibrant green, and just like I push and pull a lot of like base colors. So like grasses and stuff, I don't usually love the neon green that they normally are unless that's what I'm aiming for, if that makes sense. But that's why a lot of my work gets toned back, and then I try to make sure the model doesn't get washed out. So sometimes I'll do that in Lightroom, like paint over them to keep the background a different color. So there's a lot of post processing in Lightroom now I think about it.
All right, you guys, we're going to leave you with that thought. I want to thank Lindsey for coming on. Lindsey, you're amazing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.